All right, so I want to talk about scaling. I've been just listening to the interview between Tim Ferriss and John List. Both of those people are amazing. And I want to talk about that because it relates to some of the things that John List was talking about in terms of scaling and what he found in terms of behavioral experiments that he has been working on at the University of Chicago and elsewhere. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Massack. I'm an Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I wanted to pay the favor for it, to help you out as much as I possibly can. Okay, so the problem of scaling, I think, is really interesting, and so what he's been talking about has been really fascinating. So if you don't know, John List is this, he's a behavioral economist that studies, he's done field experiments for a long, long time. He is an absolute beast, I guess, of a scholar, and a truly amazing scholar. And that's actually where I got some of my inspiration for the whole reciprocity project, is I seen some of these University of Chicago folks doing some really cool things in terms of field experiments, and I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if we can have a platform where we can allow scholars in the background to get access to people that could do these particular field experiments. So John List is actually, he's done field experiments at Uber and Lyft, but I want to make this big, right? So other people can access it, and it's not just certain people at certain institutions that get access to it. So I am very sympathetic to the book. I'm very sympathetic to what he does. I also, I had no idea, but I truly resonate with his story and who he is and where he's come from. Both of us come from very blue-collar families. My parents never made it past high school. My mom finished high school when I was in university. She went back, and that was a really big deal in our family for a lot of different reasons, both negative and positive. I was the first one in my family. I was a first-generation student, first one in my family to go to Wade University out of 100 of us. It's a large extended family. It was a really weird, daunting thing to go to Wade University. And so I resonate with everything that he's gone through. I resonate with the fact that it was really hard to get a job initially in the academic job market. I applied to 100 different places. Florida State was a wonderful place that accepted me. So I absolutely understand that plight and everything that he's gone through. I was very sympathetic with it. But there's a couple of things that, in terms of scaling, that I think he has gotten right. And there's one thing that I would kind of disagree with what he is saying. The first thing is it's sort of network externality component, and looking for things that have increasing returns to scale is so vitally important to anything that's going to scale, right? You have to have it where it connects with other people. Whatever you're working on connects with other people and brings people together, so that when they come together, it becomes a better, more fun experience with more and more people that have that. So here's the gist of it that's really hard, is that creates a chicken and the egg problem, because when you first offer the particular thing, it's like the whole reciprocity platform right now. It's not as good as where I would love it to go, and in my head I have this sort of amazing thing in terms of making it very useful for us to do research and to allow citizen science and all those kind of things. But it's not there yet, right? And until it gets there, and this is a tricky thing, to get there where it actually becomes something that's really big, it requires a lot of money and a lot of upfront, gumption. That is hard to do, and to get that sort of clicking right with platforms. And this is the trouble with two-sided or multi-sided platforms, is you both have to have buyers and sellers that are on these particular platforms, and it's a really hard combination to get. And so we often talk about the chicken and the egg problem when that happens there. So the next thing that I truly believe in, that I think that this is bang on, is that the sort of culture aspect and thinking about what does it mean to inspire people, what does it mean to get people to do things to be that they want to inherently do it. That is a really hard problem, and we don't have a good sense of that, I don't believe, both in the strategy literature and the economics literature. I know that Robert Gibbons in economics and Rebecca Henderson have done a little bit of work, but I don't think it really is addressing that. And there are some folks at Stanford that I think have looked at. I think they looked at culture. Amir Goldberg, but so that there is aspects to it that are just not quite. We know that that's important, and that has actually been really important to the strategy literature for a long, long time. Jay Barney sort of basically talked about this for many years, and so it's really important to what a good company actually looks like and how to do these things, but it's not clear on how to actually do that, and that's where I sort of struggle with what does it mean to actually build that. So I've figured out that having conversations with you all the time I think is super important. There's something about that, having these conversations and very real conversations where you see me struggling. I think that is very important to building culture and letting you know that I'm here, I'm part of this, I'm not going to stop. And it's the same as you. You shouldn't stop with the thing that you're doing. And so the last thing, this is what I was going to point out in terms of that was resonating with me, is he sort of points out that we should think about sort of optimal stopping. And I'm aware of that literature and the sort of models and stuff like that with optimal stopping, but there's some problems with that, I think. And the reason is that presumes that we know what these particular alternatives are. And that's the whole problem with the decision-making framework in general, or even even behavioral decision-making framework in general, is it presumes that we make decisions as human beings, that we have these alternatives, and that these alternatives are very clear to us, right? But a lot of us don't know what those alternatives are. We don't have those opportunities that are there. It's like, it's like to have that sort of situation, you have to have multiple job opportunities that are lined up, and then you can sort of pick the best one based on those multiple job opportunities. But most of us are not like that. Most of us, I believe, are much more like what they would talk about in sociology. We have these sort of life histories where we go from one event or one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and we don't necessarily know what the alternative is, or we can't see those particular alternatives. So my conclusion is different than what he would say, that you should, and I would somewhat disagree with what I've seen many economists talk about in terms of like stopping at a particular thing. Instead, I would actually say that you should sort of persist at something for a lot longer than you ever think you would, because you're gathering information every time. And there's a couple of sort of interesting behavioral effects that ends up happening, is that as you persist at something, and you keep working at it. But here's the thing, you have to take it seriously and up your ante all the time, right? I think that's where people sort of get messed up, is they don't up their ante all the time. They're not sort of, improving on the particular thing. They kind of get to a point and they're like, this is good enough. But instead, like, constantly investing more and more, because that sends a signal to the marketplace that you're doing something that other people might not be doing. And that is a really strong, positive, interesting signal to other people that they might be attracted to that. Now, this is the beauty of the internet at this moment, and there was a sort of conversation with Tim Ferriss about, like, there is you can create this sort of big business with having a market of weirdos or something like that, they call it. And that's true, right? With the internet now, we can do that, and that's the advantage of this sort of scale effect, and that's where we have these network scale effects that we have, that you can reach people around the world, right, by doing that and being open. And I think leveraging much more of internet resources and internet networks and things like that, and being open with that, it is really hard. I'm going to tell you that right at the get-go right now, but it's extremely valuable. And the reason why it's hard is for a lot of these behavioral reasons, not necessarily behavioral, but like a lot of psychological reasons, right? Being open talking about your failures, talking about you don't know what you're talking about, talking about your fears, allowing people to make fun of you. All of those things are really incredibly important, and they're challenging for all of us to address, and they're challenging for all of us to go there and to show that you're weak and that you have these sort of problems just like everybody else, because nobody wants to be open. Nobody really wants to have those conversations, but those are the conversations that actually builds rapport, where people actually trust who you are and they understand who you are. So super interesting stuff. John Liss, if you watch this, or Tim Ferriss, if you watch this, I appreciate the conversation. I think you're onto something. All right, take care and keep going and keep working at it. All right, bye.